Here with us is legal analyst and trial attorney Misty Marris. Misty, good morning. Always great to see you, my friend. You and I were covering this on Thursday. I saw your analysis. Mangione did plead not guilty in Pennsylvania. He then entered a plea in New York. Excuse me, he did not enter a plea in New York. How likely is it that he does not contest the charges and possibly pleads guilty here?
Hannah, this was really a surprising move on Friday when Mangione, instead of going into a state court, stepped into a federal court facing a federal criminal complaint. So ultimately, this case is really going to rise and fall on whether or not the defense is able to make arguments to preclude certain evidence from going into the courtroom. And that's when there's going to be an analysis on the defense side about how to proceed in the best interest of Mangione, who is their client. That being said, he'll be pleading not guilty to both the federal charges when the time comes and the state charges. Likely Monday, he will be answering to those in his initial court appearance where he's been indicted on those first and second degree murder. And I say that because there's no discussion of a plea deal at this moment in time when you have these two parallel cases. We're not just talking about the state murder charges. Now we're talking about federal murder charges as well. So this is going to have to play out for a bit in the courtroom before anything is really determined on the possibility of a plea. But if that day were to come, Hannah, the idea would be, hey, take the death penalty off the table and for the possibility of life without parole. But we're miles away from that at this point.
Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg has already said the state and federal court cases will run parallel to each other. How could these separate trials play out moving forward, Misty?
Well, right now we're at a different procedural moment on the federal court. That's a federal court complaint, which means that an indictment needs to come. So a grand jury could convene, or there could be what's called a preliminary hearing that's scheduled for later in January. But there's going to be a bit of a push-pull between the state level charges and which one goes first and the federal charges. And right now, the state charges, they were filed first. They'll be on the track to go. But keep in mind, the DOJ is turning over on January 20th. We're going to have a new attorney general. We're going to have a new Department of Justice, and they could push to take the federal court case first. Also, that is where a decision will be made. Only the federal court charges can carry the death penalty. Those are the only ones that are death eligible. And it's ultimately up to the attorney general to make a determination about whether to seek the death penalty. So think about how impactful it is at this moment in time when the Department of Justice is about to change dramatically. So these cases are going to play out on a parallel track. One will go first, one will go second. We don't know at this moment what that looks like in the future, but we do know he's going to be facing charges in both the federal government and the state level.
Let's talk about where Mangione is being held right now. We know he's being held at that downtown Brooklyn detention center, MDC. Sean Diddy Combs is there. Sam Bankman-Fried is there. Are there any possible security concerns with keeping so many well-known suspects at the same facility? I mean, these are all famous men that we all know of now, currently.
Yeah, this facility is no stranger to having high-profile individuals incarcerated there. R. Kelly was also there. Keith Raniere was also there. But Hannah, this particular correctional facility has had tremendous criticism for many, many years about safety, about conditions. And so when you're talking about high-profile individuals like Mangione and Diddy, there's certainly extra security measures that are being taken to keep them safe. And that's even more prevalent since Jeffrey Epstein. And that was a different facility that's since been shut down. So this is the only federal correctional facility in New York, in the New York City area, in the 5 boroughs. And so that's why it's certain that additional security measures are being taken to ensure their safety when you have these high profile cases. But certainly a lot of criticism on that front as well.
Misty, let's dig more into the indictment claiming Mangione's notebook included an entry. It happened, and he wrote in it in October with an intent to, quote, whack a healthcare CEO at an investors conference. That certainly seems premeditated. How is that going to factor into the prosecutor's case?
So this is interesting because everything that came out in the federal court complaint actually very much helps the state level prosecution. So keep in mind two different legal theories. The federal court complaint says that Luigi Mangione stalked Thompson, that he crossed interstate lines with the intent to kill him using a firearm. So that's the legal theory. It has nothing to do with why he did it. It's just that it was a premeditated act of following Thompson into New York State from Atlanta and then fleeing into Pennsylvania. So think about the prospect of that case. It's actually a pretty clean legal theory as far as what you have to prove. Compare that to the state level, highest level charges, first degree murder and furtherance of an act of terrorism. This is an additional lift for prosecutors because they need to prove not only that he intended to kill, that the murder was premeditated, they also have to prove motive. In any other legal theory, motive is not required. So they have to prove that it has a broader purpose, that it's in furtherance of terrorism to coerce or influence a government policy or a civilian population. So it's two very different cases. And what was in that notebook, that speaks to mindset, that speaks to the why. And so that's going to be very helpful to the state level case.
Misty, I was at the courthouse on Thursday, and I've covered a lot of these cases before. I've never seen such a group of, I hate to call them fans, but they seem fans of Mangione. Some were starstruck that they finally got to see him. They were out there for hours. How will public support for the suspect complicate finding an impartial jury for his trial?
Hannah, it is disturbing to say the least to see all of these fans. And when we saw the entourage around Luigi Mangione, which you saw firsthand as he was escorted to the courtroom from that helicopter on Wall Street, that was more to protect him from people coming towards him, not to harm him, but because he has such a following. So all of that's going to play into the courtroom. There's going to be a very laborious voir dire process to eliminate any individuals who aren't able to come into that courtroom without bias, or individuals, Hannah, that want to be in that courtroom for the purpose of swaying the outcome of the trial. Now, it's going to be different in both jurisdictions. In New York, it's Manhattan. So it will be a jury pool from Manhattan, and you have to worry about something called jury nullification. Jurors finding someone not guilty because of a public policy reason, even though they do believe that he committed the crimes as charged. So that's going to be fought in that voir dire process. In the federal case, it pulls from different jurisdictions. It's Manhattan, Bronx, Putnam County, Orange County, Rockland County, Westchester County. For those of you who are not New Yorkers who are watching, those are all outskirt counties that are not in the New York City 5 boroughs. Very different jury pool, very different considerations. And so there's going to be a lot of focus on getting jurors in, not that haven't heard about the case, have to be living under a rock for that, but that can come in and weeding out using social media and other mechanisms to get rid of anyone who is on there for the purpose or seeking to get on the jury for the purpose of impacting the outcome.
Misty, I learned so much talking to you about the legal aspect of this case. Phenomenal job breaking it down, my friend. Misty Marris, if I don't see you, happy holidays. Thank you again.
Thank you, Hannah. Happy holidays. Always a pleasure.